Calling the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Let's pray together. Father, thank you for our gathering here on this evening. I pray that you will bestow us with your wisdom, your knowledge, and understanding as we make these decisions that are critical for the livelihood of our citizens here in Lynn Haven. I also ask that you would give great comfort and peace to all of the families that are impacted by the memories of today and what this day represents in the history of our country. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice for all. Mr. Rich Walker.
Good evening. I hope people remember where they were on September 11th. It was my last day of working for the U.S. government. It's not a nice day. I'm here on 2 points. I have 2 points and a summary and a possible answer. It deals with the meeting on 17th August and August 27th, 2024. No information is also considered misinformation. Get my point. No information is considered misinformation if portrayed by somebody. Omitted in the minutes and the complete verbiage given by Mr. Walker at a public commentary on August 27th meeting, there was a lot of information that was omitted that I said. The commissioners have agreed that during public commentary, agenda items will not be discussed until they are called by the chair. This commentary has been moved on different occasions of the agenda, haphazardly over the years, mostly as an experiment to see which one would work. In my opinion, the recent staging of this has not worked. I realize that public speaking is not a right. However, once allowed by the board chair, there are rules for the speaker and the governing body, some of which cannot be abridged by the U.S. Constitution. During public commentary, August 27th meeting, I stated that the agenda item 12, as listed, would have to wait for public commentary per the commission's directive mentioned previously. And not talk about something that's on the agenda until it comes up. At this meeting, August 27th, there were a large number of attendees who came to express their views on item 12 on the agenda. The commissioners have often discussed the lack of its citizens not paying attention to attending meetings, town halls, budget readings, and in general, any ongoings of the community. When called to speak at public commentary, they heeded my words and begged off on addressing number 12 until it was addressed in numerical order. Chair called on the item scheduled and gave the floor to Commissioner Warwick for the floor, and who stated his case quite well with emotion. The chair passed the discussion to the city manager, then to Commissioner Peebles, then to the city attorney for advice, which was the commissioners can do the following. They can direct the city manager, however, it is still her decision alone. There was no further discussion recorded in the minutes. Chair said they should consider the motion there as being requested in the agenda items. Motion on the agenda item was to censure the city manager, and it was made by Commissioner Warwick. There was no second to the motion, so it died on the floor.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Ms. Jerry Parker.
Good evening, Commission. I too want to discuss the last Commission meeting. Very disappointed in our commissioners. Each one of you were given factual information about Ramey's past discrepancies. I met with each one of you individually. and gave you factual information, each one of you. These weren't my opinion. These were facts of his past discrepancies. Y'all ignored them. You did nothing. In reference to what Mr. Walker just said, I don't feel like discussion should have been given on item 12 last commission meeting. There should have been discussion after a second. None of you stood up and gave a second. Not a one of you. When you knew there were at least a half dozen people that had requested to speak on item 12. Every one of you knew that. But you allowed people to have discussion when it shouldn't have been done. Due to no second motion, there could have been discussion in public comment. However, once again, the public was prevented from speaking on an agenda item that people wanted to express their desire to speak on this item. Again, the public was stifled. Commission, y'all got to start getting your stuff together. There's things that Ramey has done in the past that are not right. They're wrong. And y'all are allowing it to continue. And then Ms. Gaynor, she makes the decision to put him on 25 days without letting y'all discuss it in a commission meeting. Again, y'all were stifled. This is not right, people. Y'all aren't working for the citizens. Y'all are working for you people up there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Smith, Sarah Smith, M. Smith.
I'm just here for a simple reason. I have raw sewage coming from my next door neighbor. I have contacted code enforcement, no resolution. I called the public health department over on Jinx Avenue, no resolution. It is a public safety issue. I need it addressed, and I need attention immediately with it.
Could you give us your name and address? I mean, I have your name, but we need your address and phone number.
My address is 1702 Massachusetts Avenue.
All right, thank you. And we'll be sure to follow up with you.
What?
And we also need your phone number. If you could give your phone number to Mr. Lightfoot there.
The address where the breach is happening is 1704. But I do need some immediate attention on it. It is a public hazard.
Thank you. Corey Langford.
Finishing up with what Ms. Parker was talking about, we wonder why there's no or a lack of public participation. So I wanted to come tonight to discuss a couple of things, and we'll talk through the stormwater stuff a little bit later. But the last commission meeting, I asked at least the elected officials to address really three things specific to the Chief Ramey, whatever we want to call it at this point, right? Because there's a lot of people that want to move forward. There's a lot of people that want the city to heal. And I think part of that healing process is that we we look at ourselves through an evaluative lens to determine what are two things that we could have done better as elected officials. Again, this is specific to that scenario. What are two things that we could have done better as an individual? And what is one thing that if I had it to do all over again, I would do it again, and why? Those are three things that I asked for. I had one individual reach out to me specifically with that information, and I appreciate that. The rest of you, I'll stand by. The other thing that I wanted to discuss tonight is, and again, some of you, the ones that are involved, are already aware of this, but there was an individual who, I guess her water meter was broke for like 3 years, and she was paying the base rate for water, sewer. So I guess her water meter ended up getting fixed, and then now she's actually paying what she should have been paying to begin with. So as I'm reading through this, again, through an evaluative lens, like how can we do things better, okay? I just remember, I don't remember how many commission meetings ago it was, but there was a request for money to make repairs to, I believe it was the sewer plant or something, sludge hauling. I don't remember what it was, all right? And then I remembered that just not long ago, there was a vote by you all to set the fees that we pay for water and sewer. And I remember that there was discussion, oh, well, we got City X over here, they're paying this amount, and City Y over here is paying this amount. We should be aligned with our sister cities, okay? I don't agree with that approach, just so everyone's aware. We need to look at our own requirements within our own city, and we set our own rates based off of those requirements, but we can't even do that. Why? Because now we've got inaccurate data. You all have inaccurate data in which to make a decision on. We've got individuals, and this may be an isolated event. There may be one individual in Lynn Haven who's had a broken water meter for 3 years and has been paying the base rate. But guess what? That individual has been taxing the water and sewer system just like the rest of us who are all paying our fair share. Sweep off your porch first before you start looking at other people's porches. Thank you.
Jody Moore.
Good afternoon. First, I want to, Jody Moore on Amherst Street in the Beacon Bay County, Florida on Facebook. I just want to, first of all, say I'm very glad that the city is having a 9/11 ceremony. That's very great. I don't know that other cities are doing that, so that's a wonderful thing the city is doing. I would like to ask, and I did post this on the Facebook page for the city, that the city consider doing a Memorial Day service. That's something that other organizations in the city have done with the assistance of the city, but I think that would be an important thing for the city to do. We have other festivals, but why don't we do anything for Memorial Day? And I have a few other comments. This regards the last meeting. You know, no matter how many friends you get to come up here and say otherwise, I'm always going to stand up for what is true and what is right. I'm not the one creating problems. I and others are pointing out the issues that other people are creating in this city. I didn't originate or manufacture the problems that exist that you all are not dealing with. A few comments about the last commission meeting. Number one, when no one seconded Commissioner Work's motion on item number 12 about Vicki Gaynor, there were people on both sides of the issue who wanted to speak and did not get a chance. And I think that's shameful. Number two, future or past employees like Monty Odom can now sue the city if they were fired and didn't get, quote, due process. Employees who have been fired for violations of employee policy can use the Ramey situation in future lawsuits. And is that looking out for the best interest of the city or the citizens? There are already multiple lawsuits against the city. Some people aren't even aware of that, but there are multiple lawsuits right now. And quite a few are because of Vicki Gaynor and Ricky Ramey. Number three, Vicki Gaynor made a statement quoted by WJHG regarding Ramey that, quote, any further infractions would lead to termination. Unless Ramey has had a true conversion on the road to Damascus moment, he will commit other violations of employee policy. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And when he does, Vicki needs to come to this commission and let you know immediately, which she did not do last December. And if Ramey does do one more thing, just one more thing, you need to hold her to a promise and hold her accountable if she doesn't take the proper action. I still think Ramey should have been already fired, and I'm far from alone. I know there's people on the other side of that issue, but there are plenty of other people who think he should be gone. In spite of what some might think, I don't want any of this stuff that has happened in Lynn Haven the past few years. I want a good police chief, a good city manager, a good mayor, and a good commission in Lynn Haven for the citizens.
Thank you. Carolyn Miller.
Carolyn Miller, George Avenue. I have watched this Ricky Ramey situation as long as I can stand it without saying anything. You know, and I know, and all of Bay County knows that he should have been fired, and I am appalled that we have elected officials that care nothing about Lynn Haven and its residents that have lived here for so many years. I've lived here 73 years. I've never seen anything like this. Some of these people have lived all their lives here just like I have. We have put trust in the people that we elected to run the city. And I don't care that Ricky Ramey was adjudicated. I don't care about that. He needs to be terminated along with a few others. And you know who you are. That will come. Why can't you just post a position for the chief of police of the city of Lynn Haven, get somebody with integrity that's honorable, that you can be trusted and fair to everyone? Remember, your children are looking at someone who broke the law, received no punishment, a slap on the wrist, a 25-day suspension or whatever with pay. But since December, he was here with no gun, no badge, and still got paid. Y'all paid for that, and y'all let it happen. These commissioners up here, Mr. Warwick, I got to give you a 100% on what you do for the citizens of Lynn Haven. God bless you. Y'all need to take note and look at what's going on here. Anyway, with that being said, the mayor and the commissioners all need to be ashamed of what you've done to the city of Lynn Haven, mostly to James Finch, Margot Anderson. They truly loved this city. Y'all have dragged them through the mud. But their day is coming, and another election is coming, and when it does, I can't wait, because I see all your seats being refilled by somebody else. And I know you won't be up for re-election, so you should be standing up for more of what's going on in this town. Yes, you should. Mr. Peebles tried, but he gets shut
If you
up.
direct your comments to the chair, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you handsome mayor, you.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Any additional public commentary? All right, if not, moving on to the mayor's report. Thank you to all that were able to attend today's 9/11 memorial service. Certainly a sobering moment for the city of Lynn Haven, for our entire nation. This year, I know we had an additional change or something that really enhanced the ceremony, where we had someone to actually speak that had direct experience with 9/11. And so hearing Mr. Arias's reflections today from that day, something was certainly heart-moving and very reflective, that we should all be grateful that we're still here to keep those memories from 9/11, but it's certainly a day that we should never forget. So again, thank you to city manager and all who coordinated that effort today. In regards to responding to some of our public commentary, with Ms. Jerry Parker stating she met with all of us, I didn't meet with Ms. Jerry Parker to get any information. So not sure about whoever else met, but I didn't get a chance to meet with you. Also, in regards to Mr. Langford and the water meter rates, I know one of the things that we are doing is updating the actual water meters so that we can get a better reading on the water meters. In regards to increasing our rates, I think when we show what sister cities are doing, it's not for us as a decision-making procedure to say, okay, hey, Panama City's doing this or Callaway is doing this, so it seems okay for us to do this. We, a couple of years ago, the question, what really drives the water rate increase, the question was asked if the water department needed to stand on its own, or did it need to continue to take money from another enterprise fund. So what was happening is that our water and sewer were borrowing money from sanitation. So water, sewer, and Mr. Lightfoot or city manager, correct me if I'm wrong in my statement, I believe water, sewer, and stormwater were actually all being supported by sanitation. And so each year, each department was having to borrow money from those particular departments in order to function the way they were supposed to. So it was a hard question that was asked, and I will say it was something that was not taken lightly. There was a lot of discussion, quite frankly, a lot of disagreement, because I was in some of those initial discussions a couple of years ago about increasing the water rates. And although it seemed like, hey, we debated over 15 cents. So it was something that was looked at very deeply in regards to increasing or even proposing an increasement for water rates, because the idea is, okay, we're already increasing stormwater, so that's one additional rate for our citizens, and now we're talking about increasing water and increasing sewer. But the question was, do we want to continue to drain from sanitation so that water and sewer, if they keep taking from that, what will happen to sanitation? Into the sanitation fund. Although it's healthy, we don't want to keep taking from that. And so it's also the Finance Review Committee as well, which is composed of 5 citizens from Lynn Haven. And so before the water rates come to us, so like what the planning board does for developments and such, the Finance Review Committee, they met with the finance department chair or our director of finance department, city manager. I was at a couple of those meetings initially to discuss what proposals could be made. So there was a plan laid out to say, okay, in 5 years, if you increase these increments, then water will be on its own, be able to stand and sort of fund itself. And so that's really the sort of the catalyst behind the increase of the water rates, is how can we make sure that water is able to pay for itself and not continue to take from the sanitation department. And in essence, that's really what the stormwater assessment is about. So anytime as I'm understanding it, as we're increasing these rates at the moment, as we're proposing these increases, is certainly not to create any type of extra funding, or even for the sake of even future developments, is really or future tasks or projects, is really to say, what can we do to make sure that we're properly funding these departments so that it won't keep borrowing from another department. Because then over time, in 20 years, sanitation won't be healthy if we keep taking from that. And we were saying borrowing, we were talking about anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million, each budget cycle. So I don't think any of us are fans of the increases, because all of us are having to pay for the increases, and we are trying to keep in mind inflation. And so we are thinking of, how does this impact our citizens? And even in the discussion, we think about, our senior citizens that are living off of fixed income that is certainly different and doesn't, increase at the same rate as someone else who may still be working now. So we have taken all those factors into consideration when we did talk with the finance department, the Finance Review Committee about those increased rate proposals. So just wanted to clarify the sort of the catalyst behind why those proposals are being proposed. But we still do check what the rates are in other cities. And I do know what you're referencing, I believe, in regards to say, hey, we're behind other cities, so we can increase to try to catch up. But I think it was saying that, okay, for so many years we didn't increase while other cities did, and it's caused us to fall behind. But that's the reason for the proposal of the water increases, so that water can support itself. And finally, I don't know about any of the other commissioners. I don't think any of us have anything. I know Commissioner Perno he's our senior commissioner, but even with himself, none of us have anything to do with the Margot Anderson or Jane Finch trial. So none of us have anything to do with any of that. We don't. So whatever's happened there that happened before we came along. I know that started with Commissioner Perno when he was here, but he has nothing to do with that either. So none of us have anything to do with that. No, ma'am, there's no response to that. But we have nothing to do with that. So whatever's happening with that is not in our purview. So, all right, Commissioner Peebles.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to the city for putting on that ceremony today. It was fantastic. And to those that came out during the rain, that was awesome. I was 12 years old when that happened, and I still remember that day. I was sitting in my living room. I was homeschooled at the time. Sitting in my living room, and I didn't really, when it first happened, as a 12-year-old kid, you don't really grasp what's truly happening until you're sitting there and you see the second plane hit, and everyone reacting to it. But man, I gotta say, the one thing that the lesson I learned from it was the way that, as Deputy Chief talked about earlier, is the unity that came from it. And so I just want to encourage that sense of unity as we think about that day. In 2016, I was able to go up to New York and went to the memorial and the museum. And, you saw what you saw on the news, but once you go up there and see it in person and go in that museum, see the people's faces, it really opened your eyes. So if you ever get a chance to go up there, up to New York, it's free. Obviously you got to pay to travel up there, but if you're up there, I believe it's free for military to go into the museum, and then they ask for a suggested donation type thing to get into the museum, and then the memorial's free. If you ever get a chance to go up there, it's worth the trip just to see it. So definitely think about that. Really, if you thought, just thinking about that kind of thing makes me emotional. So adding the monument and the museum, if you get a chance, highly suggest it. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the first responders and everyone at the city for what you do. Thank you to the staff for all you do and what you did today for the ceremony. For those people out there picking up chairs after the ceremony was over, and to all of you, thank you for making that happen. And with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Perno.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out, and thank you for your comments. I'm sorry I'm not doing enough for you, ma'am. I've been here 5, 6, almost 6 years now, but I'm serving the city the best I can. That's all I can tell you. And if I haven't done enough, fell short in your eyes, I apologize. I am on the estuary program for the St. Andrew Bay, St. Joe Bay, and I think I mentioned in a previous report that on September 28th, the estuary program's doing a 5K for the bays. We had sent out an email to all the commissioners, and I think everybody got it. It's going to be 8:30. It's going to be at the Wetlands Conservation Park in Panama City Beach. It's a fundraiser for the estuary program. The estuary program's getting started. They're going to be looking for people to join the estuary program. They might get potentially into a license plate program or what, but estuary programs are kind of the control of the waterways. Like, we don't want our waterways to become pollutant or infiltrated by things that would cause people not to want to come enjoy our water, so to speak. So there are national estuary programs all over the country, and this is a start to hopefully having the St. Andrew Bay, St. Joe Bay estuary program become a national estuary program, as is the Escambia Bay estuary program, as is the Indian River Lagoon estuary program. There's several estuary programs in the state of Florida that have gotten the recognition and become national estuary programs. It's good for funding. It brings good research. It brings the fail-safe of protecting your waterways. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about that. I know we're going to talk about the budget tonight. We're going to talk about the millage. I did have a budget meeting with city manager and finance director. I explained some things that I was thinking about. We're looking at spending a bunch of money on redoing our water sewer treatment plant, and we're already making the steps to do the engineering for that. We're looking at a huge expenditure for the for the head increase of that plant. We have an opportunity to possibly get away from that in the future. I just hope that an avenue opens up where we may be able to engage in a joint venture with the county and create the ability to have a water treatment plant away from the edge of the bay. You know, kind of goes hand in hand with the estuary program. We're going to be doing a vulnerability study, and I already know that vulnerability study is going to show where our water treatment sewer plant is right now is not a good place for in the way of a disaster or a flood. It's going to be going away. I've talked to city manager. I've talked to department heads. I just think that we really need to get it out there and talk about the potential. There's a water treatment plant up off 388. We've had the county come to us before. I think it's ripe and it's time that we get into negotiations with them. Hopefully to if we're going to expand a water treatment plant, why not expand the one that they have and do a joint venture and get the one that we have off the bay? It means us going to county rates, but I could only imagine what we're going to end up having to charge people when we do the head expansion on that water treatment plant. So I'm thinking way down the road now, you know, kind of like the TPO does. But this is really eye-opening if you get to study this particular situation. So right now in the present and near future, we have an opportunity to set the path for way into the future, where our descendants don't have to deal with a water sewer treatment plant on the water's edge. So that's my 2 cents on that. I'm hoping we can progress there. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward.
Yes, so just echoing the words on 9/11, thank you for the city putting on the event today. I'm sure everyone can remember what they were doing when that happened. A lot of people were affected by that, and it's a good time to remember our first responders and veterans and things like that. Speaking of which, I wanted to give kudos to Lynn Haven Police Department. I'm sure a lot of you heard about there was a fugitive in the area that was spotted and tracked down by the Lynn Haven Police Department, and there are other agencies that were involved. And we always worry about a day like that happening in our area, and appreciate them keeping us safe, and glad no one got hurt. So. The only other thing I have is I do time with the commissioner once a month. My next one's 21 September at 11:30. It'll be at Tacos Way this time. You know, any residents who want to come out and speak about whatever. And if you can't make it and you just want to contact me, you can always call me, 850-391-1217. I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Or if you want to meet for coffee or whatever, I'm more than happy to do that. So. Please feel free to reach out to me. That's all I have. Thank you.
And Commissioner Vandegrift.
So Mayor, I'm going to keep my remarks really short because we have a public workshop that, I'm sorry.
Have I been put in timeout?
School is in session.
Today, I was sitting by Commissioner Peoples, and I happened to ask him at the 9/11 ceremony. I said, Sam, how old were you when this happened? And he said, I was 12. And I was thinking back. At that time, I was principal at Surfside Middle School, and I had 1,000 Sams. And when the tragedy happened, parents were panicky. All they could think about was getting their child and keeping them safe at home. So we started the day out with around 1,000 students. At the end of the day, we only had a few hundred because the parents were coming in droves because they were so afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen, but they knew they wanted to have their children close by. So 9/11 to me, it's a reminder that someone's after us, and they're still after us. They want to destroy our country. But one thing we have to be careful of is we don't want to destroy our country from within. We don't need to be divided. You know that old saying, divide and conquer? So it's a reminder to me, 9/11, of that they're still out there after us, but we also have to be careful what's going on within our country.
All right, thank you. And I guess to follow up on Commissioner Ward's comments regarding Lynn Haven Police and the individual that was apprehended. I believe it was actually Lynn Haven Police who actually spotted the individual. And so, Deputy Chief, if you'd like to make some remarks on that.
Mayor, it was one of our younger officers that actually spotted that guy in his vehicle. He backed off. The guy wasn't complying with him, so he called for backup. He did absolutely perfect. And in response to everybody about Mr. Peoples being 12, the officer that caught that guy, I asked him today how old he was when 9/11 happened. He was 8 months old.
All right, thank you. And so, although we can't give like a Medal of Valor, we certainly want to give some public recognition to that officer and his efforts. So we certainly appreciate all the work of our police and fire departments in keeping us safe and secure in this city of Lynn Haven. City Manager, are you ready?
Is it my turn yet? Just a couple of things before we get into budget. Fall concert series begins September 20th. They asked me to remind you of that sidewalk project. It's now complete on 8th in Florida. I have several sidewalk projects that are going on that'll be finished. I want to really thank our marketing and communications department. They do a lot for the city in putting together these events, making sure they run smoothly. And thank Community Services Department, which is Ty's department, for setting up for us, Police Department, Fire. So many people help to make events possible. We had a great turnout today. People were standing in the rain for this event because we love our country. We love the sacrifices that people make, and we want to recognize those sacrifices. As the speaker said today, we were fighting for, and we are. And so just thank everyone for coming out today. Do you want me to make my remarks now, or do you want to wait until? Yeah.
Good evening. Do you have questions about the warrant list?
Okay. So next is our budget. One of the reasons we put it inside the commission meeting is because people had a hard time coming to two meetings, listening to budget meeting one day, then coming to budget workshop. So we thought we put it all under one. Today, we've been working on this budget probably since about May, right after we passed the mid-year budget. I want to thank Kiki and Don for working with all of the departments and pulling all of this together, all the many changes for putting this entire budget together. We're going to just share some highlights from 24-25 budget. First, we're proposing a 4.05 millage rate. The tentative ad valorem that we proposed back in July was set at 4.2, so it's gone down, but a little bit up. To get to where we are, There are people that work hard to get to ensure that the citizens don't have to pay more than what all of us can bear. So the budget has decreased by 19%, and that's simply due to the fact that we've taken out many of the grants for construction. Our grants usually don't always, yeah. Guys, can you stop that? Because Kiki's going to go over all of those things. Thank you. So a lot of times our grants don't always are completed in one of those years. It's taken us a while for some of these grants that are construction related to even get the money or get the okay to start those. So we took those out. We intentionally made that decision to take those projects out until we're in a phase and we get the okay to start those grant projects. Another point, at the end of 2024-25 fiscal year, the city's total debt will be $35,677,000. That's the end of fiscal year 24-25. In comparison to end of fiscal year 2018, the city's total debt was $31,734,580. The city is really on the right track of cutting debt. Our debt has been cut in half since 2019, when the city debt was $66,969,000. We added 4 positions. Those positions were surely needed in sports and rec, fire department, and a grant writer to general fund, and we had no additional positions in the enterprise. We added $125,000 to community services department to permanently fix the seawall. We've been maybe repairing the seawall, and it's costing us just as much to repair it, so it really needs to be fixed once and for all. With impact fees, we will buy 3 new police cars, a truck for the fire department, and a truck for community services. In the enterprise fund, we will purchase 2 knuckle booms, and we will again lease a new garbage truck. In the enterprise fund for water, sewer, and sanitation commercial, the budget includes increases approved by the commission. Stormwater EBU for this year is $169,000. And so, excuse me, $169, not $169,000, $169. But with all of that said, those are just some highlights of things that we wanted to bring to your attention. And now Kiki is going to go over the budget page by page.
Good evening. For the audience's sake, I want to remind everyone that we have met with you individually, so you have had the opportunity to ask me and the city manager any questions that you wanted. This is the first time I'm presenting to the body as a whole. As I've explained previously, the first few pages are exactly the same as they have always been. It details our history and where the money comes from, and the utility rates as of this year. The budget for 2024, as the city manager stated, does include a millage of 4.05 and the water and sewer increases that you approved last month. Those increases are included in this budget. Where the numbers start to change are on page 10. This is our debt service calendar. It tells you every payment that will be made by the city on the date those payments will be made. The debt service for fiscal 25 will be $4,097,000. Page 12 highlights the same $4,097,000, but tells you how much we are paying on each of the bonds or notes. And you can look and see that we're paying on the disaster recovery bond, for example, $2,757,000. So again, this is the same $4 million. Page 13 just breaks down those same $4 million for the accounting department so they know how to put it into the budget. Page 14, again, is my most favorite page of the budget. It gives you everything in one quick snapshot. Each of the columns is a fund. In government accounting, a fund is a designated term that tells you that those monies can only be spent for specific things, and they're restricted to those funds. We cannot intermingle between the columns. As city manager said, the budget is now at $52,100,000. This is 19% below where it was in fiscal '24, again, primarily because of the reduction of the grant-funded projects. The revenues start on page 15. Of course, the very first line item is the ad valorem, the millage rate, which we budget 95% per statute of what we believe this 4.05 will bring in. So the ad valorem will be $6.4 million this year. Anything with a dark shaded green background are numbers that I get from the state. I have no leeway on those numbers. Everything else is my best estimation. On page 17, you'll see the grand total for general fund will be $19,600,000. Then becomes the impact fees for the general fund, $224,000, and so on, going through each of the different funds until you get to page 22, and again, $52,100,000 total revenues. Per state statute, the revenues have to balance against the expenditures, so you'll see that number for expenditures as well. There's only three ways to do that. One is to spend exactly the same amount of money you bring in. You, from dealing with home budgets, know that's nearly impossible to do. The other is to take from your savings account to fund your deficit. That's called cash carry forward in our world. Or if you are lucky enough to underspend your revenues, you put money in your piggy bank for later on. That's called reserves. In the case of the general fund this year, we will use cash carry forward of about $78,000. Certainly within the realm of the size of this budget, I have absolutely no concerns about that at all. Pages 23, 24, and 25 give you some graphical representations. These numbers are a little different. City manager asked me to reduce these by the disaster monies, so it's only $47 million rather than the 52. But this is the same money, just represented in different graphical form. Page 25 tells you all about personnel expenditures. We're actually only up 2% from fiscal '24, which I think is fabulous. We will have additional staff. We had some long-term employees leave us. We've hired newer staff, so that's it all measured out to a 2% increase over 2024. Pages 26 through 31 tell you about each and every department, where we're changing positions, we're adding here, we're taking away there. It nets out to adding, or we will end up, I should say, with 204.5 full-time equivalents and 17 part-time staff members. That's on the bottom of page 31. 32 describes the grant funding projects, and you'll see that it's less than $2 million. This is the significant difference between fiscal '24 and fiscal '25. We had, I believe it's $16 million in fiscal '24, but again, as city manager said, those projects are not ready. They're not shovel-ready, as the term goes. So we're waiting for them to get through the process at the higher governmental level. And it's entirely possible I may come back to you at mid-year and say, these are ready to go, we need to adjust the budget for those projects. Keep you informed. Page 33 and 34 are the capital outlay items. We'll spend $8 million on different vehicles and equipment. some land that you already heard about at the CRA meeting. Several of these things are being funded by impact fees. Then we get to the heart of the budget, which starts on page 35. The legislature department, which is your department, will increase by $3,300. That's a marginal increase. The executive budget will be at $494,000. There's a marginal increase here of $17,000. I will say, as we're all aware, there has been significant inflation countrywide. We reflect that in our budget. There's a COLA for staff. We've increased several items that are coming to us with increases, so we've increased those in our budget to pass on to our customers. It's just a fact of life here. So when I talk about marginal increases, a lot of that has to do with a state of the national economy. Having said that, the finance department is on page 37, which shows a very large increase. And as we discussed, we will be hiring a deputy finance director with the idea that that person and I will work together for a period of time until that person gets comfortable and they can take over the responsibilities, and I will leave you then. So that's why we've got a large increase here, is because we've got two salaries tandem. The planning department has a marginal increase of $13,000. Public Works, as we've discussed, we've taken all the employees out of Public Works and allocated them out to the enterprise funds. So it looks like we're saving $45,000 here. Not really the case. The money is actually going into the enterprise fund so that we can get a better handle on really what the utilities cost to run. Page 40 is the general fund debt service. This is one portion of one 2016 sales tax bond. That bond is split between the general fund, the water department, and the sewer department. So that's just a portion of one bond. Page 41 is facilities maintenance. We do have an increase here. We've got additional staff coming in. They will be getting a vehicle, and that's primarily the increases for facilities maintenance. Administrative support. We do have an additional staff member in here, the grant writer. We were able to get into this budget, so I'm thrilled to death with that. That's an excellent move towards the future. Is my personal opinion, my professional opinion, excuse me, that a grant writer will pay for itself over the course of that person's tenure with the city. Having said that, it looks as if we're saving $500,000 on this budget. That is primarily because we do not have reserves this year. You'll see the very last number in fiscal '24. We're hopefully going to put $500,000 aside in the piggy bank. That will not happen this year in '25. Information technology, we were able to save some money here, and that was from computer software support. Police department, we do have an increase, and as city manager explained to you, it's primarily because we will be purchasing 3 patrol cars, and we'll be using impact fees for that purchase. Fire department has an increase of approximately $123,000. That is primarily because of increased staff. We were adding 2 firefighters. The code enforcement, as I explained to you before, we are fully staffed with 2 individuals there, so we only have a minor increase to that department. Protective inspections, which commonly referred to as the building department, actually shows a savings of $15,000. Human resources, I did mention to you that the liability insurance came in a little lower than we had thought it was going to, so we have a savings in the HR department. Lynn Haven Bayou Park and Preserve, as you are all aware, this is a grant-funded project. We try and keep this budget at about $350,000 $150,000 a year. Money is going to run out at some point, so I want to make sure everyone is aware that once that grant money is gone, this is expenditure that the city will have to plan for in the future. Customer service does have an increase here. We're planning to do some construction work on the customer service building, which is part of this campus. City manager wants to have the exterior reflect what this building looks like, and we also have some interior things that we want to address, so we've added some budget for construction over there. The streets department, this has a savings of nearly $1 million. Again, this is projects that we had, primarily it's the legislative paving money that was not awarded in '25. We will roll approximately $500,000 from fiscal '24 to '25, but that's the '24 allotment from the state. There is no more money in '25 from the state for legislative paving. Fleet management has a small savings of $15,000. Economic development, which is one of Mr. Jenke's budgets, you'll see a decrease on his salary. We are not decreasing his salary. We are reallocating between the CRA and the economic development. So CRA is paying more of his salary this year than it did in '24. He keeps a wonderful detailed calendar that he gives me every year to substantiate how we come up with this allocation. Sports and rec, basically a flat budget for them. They are getting some equipment, and we're using impact fees to finish off the King Griffin parking lot. That's rollover project from '24. We'll have about $150,000 that we'll use in '25 to finish off that project. Parks and Grounds has a small increase of $43,000, primarily for a vehicle that we will be using impact fees to purchase. Communications and marketing will have $573,000 next year, which is above about $45,000 more than this year. It's a little bit of everything. Animal control also is going up $44,000. That's primarily for staff increases. You met Courtney a couple of meetings ago. She's doing a wonderful job. Her staff is doing a wonderful job. We've made some adjustments to their salaries. That is the end of general fund. Everything after that is has its own balance sheet and profit and loss statement or income statement, however you phrase it in your business community. I am starting with something that's called general fund impact fees. I know that's confusing. It's not part of the general fund, but when that money is used, it's transferred into the general fund. We will spend $721,600 of impact fees, and each of the projects are listed there for you to see. Sidewalk projects, the police vehicles, the fire vehicle, and so on. Then comes the CRA, again, its own fund. As Mr. Jenke explained to you, we budgeted $1,274,000. As you are aware, he gets a certain amount of money every year, and that money is meant to be spent. He's in the enviable position of having to spend his money, so I have no concerns about this budget at all. The water department starts on page 68 and continues on to page 70. Again, I have included the increases that you approved here last month. I am comfortable with the water department. The sewer department also includes the increases that you approved last month. As I have told you many times in the past, the sewer department is my biggest concern for the city. We do have a little money tucked aside in reserves, $381,000. We are going from an $11 million budget in fiscal '24 down to a $7,300,000 budget in fiscal '25. Most of that has to do with projects that are being put off because of the not being ready in the other governmental agencies. The Stormwater Department starts on page 74 and 75. This also includes the assessment increase that you'll be discussing later on in the meeting tonight. It also has a reduction of $1.7 million. This is primarily for the legislative stormwater. That was down $600,000. And then the CDBG grant is a decrease of almost $600,000. So just between those two projects being pushed, that's the bulk of it. The sanitation department comes in at $3.4 million. I'm perfectly comfortable with that number. Then we get to page 78. Again, this is a separate funds unto themselves. However, these monies will be transferred into the enterprise fund. We will take $1 million out of impact fees and use it for the expansion project. We'll take $85,000 out of the impact fees and use it for the Aberdeen Parkway. We'll take $225,000 out and use that for a bush axe in the stormwater department. And then we'll tuck aside $172,000 in the water fund for their reserves. Yes, disaster recovery is on page 79. As you're aware, we're pretty much getting close to the end. We still have the facilities maintenance building to do. We still have some wrap up to do on this building. And of course, the debt service for the disaster fund will continue for many years to come. The debt service runs $2,700,000. Again, we're wrapping up on the disaster recovery. As of last week, the report that I got from the state of Florida was we had $6,300,000 due to us still from FEMA. That money will come in dribs and drabs. City manager works on this diligently, trying to get them to release these funds. It's yeoman's work. It's very difficult to do. But when that money does finally come in and the projects are completed, we will have a deficit and the general fund will have to take over the debt service on the disaster bond. Page 80 is the COVID expenditures. We have $31,000 tucked away. This was some money that we got from the county several years ago. I just throw $5,000 in there just as a placeholder because we never know what's going to go on with COVID. And then lastly is the surtax fund. We will spend $250,000 on the senior center, $700,000 on street paving, and then we're going to save for the following year $3,994,000. And that is the budget. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Finance Director? We want to start with the commission, and then we'll go to the public. Any questions from the commission?
I have one. Sorry. So with this grant writer that would potentially be coming in this position, what all type of grants are we envisioning focusing on? What type? Like, what are we looking to cover?
Well, I won't be directing the position,
Right.
but my recommendation would be the expansion of the sewer department.
Okay.
But it surely will be a little bit of everything. It just won't be one department. So that grant writer is going to be specifically looking for grants for the city. Right now, we have someone that does grants and contracts. We have a lot of contracts, and then we have a lot of grants that we really just have to manage, reporting every month. And you're trying to report, you have 20 grants, and you have to report those to several different agencies. And so we really want to get back to looking for those grants that will help the sewer department. There are grants out there for parks, community services, water grants that are out there. This person will be specifically looking for those grants that will help us to, again, to really increase and renovate our infrastructure so that we don't have to use money from our funds. I mean, that's the great thing about grants. If you can find 100% funding, it's a wash. You haven't lost any money from any of your funds. That's our goal.
My hope is that with this grant writer position, that over time, like you said, it'd pay for itself, but also it'll allow us to do things to potentially lower the millage rate in the future because we can use grant funding to cover things. Or look at considering changing how we do stormwater or whatever, if we're able to get more grants, focus more on grant money that we can get in, that we don't have to, get charged the citizens for usage. And so I'm really hoping that the grant writer is going to be a good thing. I think that it will be ultimately.
As is always the case, we charge just the very bare minimum on the millage to be able to balance the budget.
Yeah.
That's the way the statute is written, is it's meant to balance the budget.
Right. And so my thought process is if you have grant money coming in towards the budget,
Right.
then that means potentially the millage rate could go down because you don't have to pull from the millage, you can pull from the grants
If
for
we're
future
able
projects.
to secure grants that help the general fund, absolutely,
Yeah.
yes, you are
Correct.
correct.
Any additional questions from the commission?
I have a couple. On the, you mentioned on the enterprise impact fees that we're transferring money into other
Wow.
areas.
The water department. The water department will take aside $172,000. The other monies above that on the page that are going to purchase specific either items or projects. So I take the money out of that fund and I do a journal entry to move the money into the enterprise fund to pay for whatever it is that you've agreed to here today.
And you said on the disaster recovery expenditures that at some point in time, our general budget will have to start picking up. Would you explain that again? I'm
Yes,
sorry, I
ma'am.
missed it.
Of course, you're fully aware of when the hurricane hit, the city did not have enough money to handle the debris removal. And the city floated a bond for $31 million and change. It was the right thing to do. You did not have a choice. It was the only way the city got through the hurricane. Over the course of these nearly 6 years, we have spent $100 million on the city on all the projects. We have brought in approximately $100 million, give or take, through the insurance money, through FEMA, through interest on the money. We have about $1.6 million in the bank today. We have $6.3 million as a receivable coming in. So that gets us to $7 million and change, right? The budget this year is $4 million. That leaves us with $3 million in the disaster fund. The debt service annually is $2,700,000. That buys us 1 year of debt service. So my best projection today is sometime around fiscal '27 is when the general fund will have to take over the responsibility for that debt service on the disaster bond. And it will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 million.
I have another question about the SCADA. I know it's a software. Is this a new one or an update? It's $550,000.
No, ma'am, this is intended for our lift stations. Currently, the lift stations do not have any SCADA on it, and that is so that we can remote them or monitor them remotely. So this is to start on our major stations and then work down the list as we go. You will still have the strobe light for warnings, yes.
Also, I noticed that one of your departments is taking a big hit. So we're postponing a lot of our projects,
Are you referring to the stormwater project, or the stormwater budget?
sewer.
So we the Headworks project, we had 3.6 million, I believe, in the budget this year. Of course, it's 12 million to build the project, so we removed that 3.6 from the budget. So it looks like we are, decreasing the budget significantly. However, we're just not being able to complete that project yet.
Oh,
All right, any other additional questions?
Mayor, if I may, just gonna restate, based on my meeting with the city manager and the finance director, and I don't know if we could help it or not, but I'm just gonna state what came off my brain that day. We have another year going on in the budget. We're looking at a 4% COLA increase, and I personally don't think it matches the inflation rate. It could be a COLA of less than 4%. Our millage rate we're looking at 4.05. It is one of the tightest budgets I've ever seen. And you're talking about debt service, but there's not money in the budget. We're looking at forecasting what our debt service is. If we had a little more to work with, say a 4.1 millage, there'd be more in the budget so we can extend the debt service a little bit. That being said, we talked about disaster funds, and we're going another year without saying anything about a library. We promised our citizens a library, and we've kicked it around a little bit, but rubber's not meeting the road in a budget another year if we don't put anything in there about what are we going to do about a library, okay? And then also, I mentioned it, but I was told, it's a very expensive project. We're still looking at phase 5 of the sports complex. We've dished out a lot of money for the sports complex, City Hall and whatnot. And there's phase 5 of the sports complex where we have the football fields and soccer fields, and what I'm told is it's just not there. Now, did we not know? We spent a lot of money, that building's nice and everything, but again, we don't have the ability to forecast something like that to finish those utility fields, football fields, soccer fields. I know lacrosse is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. And if we don't have the facilities for it, you miss out. It goes to another town. The county's building a nice facility up the road. If they have lacrosse and football fields, that's where it's going to go. So 2025, I know we're looking at putting it to rest and putting it out there, but I just want to bring it to everybody's attention that there's room to decrease, increase, and get some stuff in the budget that we can get things going and kind of live up to our word, kind of thing. So, and that's work to do for us. So, it's not really a question. I'm just stating what we said that day, and that's basically my sentiments.
So just for those in the audience, the last number that I heard about the football fields, which is 2 years ago, was $3 million. So take that for whatever it's worth.
Busy grant writer.
The library, there was a design done several years ago. I don't recall what the estimate was on it then, but I'm pretty sure whatever that was is probably just as good as that $3 million estimate.
The libraries, that entire plan is finished, and we did bring it before the commission before, didn't make a decision on it. It was a $1.9 million project for the library.
Again, that's in yesterday's dollars.
I just wanted to point out that if you look at how much we're paying towards bonds every year, that's $4 million. So ultimately, our goal should be bringing down which we are, the debt's going down. But just to put it out there for the audience and whatever, our goal truly should be lowering the debt so we don't pay that $4 million every year, because that's $4 million that could go towards a library or a football field or whatever. So truly, our main goal should be right now, since the debt used to be 60 million or 66 or whatever, now it's down to 39. If we can get that, I believe if I read it properly, we're paying like $1 million in interest or so every year.
Correct.
So that's $1 million that's literally going in the toilet because of debt, because we're paying interest.
However, it's not all general fund. There's only 155,000 of it is general fund. Everything else is for enterprise or the disaster. Truly, the bulk of that 2.7 million is for the disaster bond. That's the 2.7 out of 4 million.
Right.
And I guess one question for clarity is in regard to the disaster bond. I think initially many of us thought that, so we have this disaster bond, we get reimbursement from FEMA, it covers the disaster bond. But as I'm understanding it, there are certain certain things that we paid for out of the disaster bond which FEMA did not cover.
Correct.
Could you identify some of those things that were paid out of the disaster bond that FEMA won't cover?
Well, the easy thing to think of is the ECS invoices that have been discussed endlessly. They were at 4.9 or
5.2 million. Yeah, 5.2 million.
Somewhere in the 5 million range. Clearly, we can't ask for that. One of the last conversations we've had with Tetra Tech, they suggested we might submit our legal expenses. I think the exact quote was, "It doesn't hurt to ask," but I can't put that in my calculation. So we have $500,000 worth of legal expenses that the city had to foot the bill for. I can't assume that the feds are going to say, yes, we'll send you that $500,000. Those are the big ticket items. We're still in negotiation about the temporary facilities. They're very specific about how the money can come in. They identify a project, they assign a dollar value to it. This is what you're going to get for that project, and then the economy does what the economy does, or we change the scope, or, there's lots of moving parts here. Like for the library, they gave us $61,000. That's it, $61,000 for the library. So now we're talking about a $1.9 million budget that's years old. So basically, what's going to happen is whatever decision you make about the library, it's going to have to come out of general fund.
And Mayor, could I just piggyback on that as well? We were calculating that we would actually get $23 million from our insurance. We did not anticipate the fact that we would have to go through litigation to get that money. And, of course, paying over $1 million in litigation fees, not getting it all close to it. So we came out below what we thought we were going to get. Had we, taken the money at the beginning of the disaster, and that insurance company had paid us out at $23 million, that would have been much better. But the administration at that time decided to go with a public adjuster. And so it was very difficult for us to get money out.
We did collect $18.8 million in insurance money, $18.8 million. Again, I think I described to you before, they wrote us that final check and said, we're settling with you, we're done, this is the end of the discussion. Well, FEMA doesn't work that way. They want to know how much of that money went to this project and how much went to that project and how much, and our consultants are working very diligently trying to come up with a rationale so that FEMA will agree that the $18.8 million can be assigned to the proper projects. It's a very laborious process.
All right, thank you. Questions from the public? We'll go row by row. Mr. Langford.
I got a small brain, so you'll have to dumb this down for me. So you mentioned you were concerned about the sewer department, but it looks like there's a 36% decrease in the funding. Sewer is obviously part of the enterprise fund, and we just increased the rates for water and sewer sanitation. So I'm curious as to how do we increase rates to an enterprise fund, but then we reduce the sewer department by 36%, which should be our top concern.
I share your concern.
You want to come and talk about some of the projects that you took out, and then also some of the grant projects that we also took out as well.
Like we discussed earlier, the $3.6 million that we reduced from this year's budget is because we do not have the entire $12 million to complete that project. So it looks like we're significantly reducing the budget. However, we're just pushing the projects down the road that need to be done for the budget. So it's not that we're reducing the budget and saving money. It's that we're not able to complete everything we must do or we need to do because we don't have the adequate funding for it. So we're reducing the budget because we can't do it, but the budget is still not enough to complete what needs to be done.
Does that provide any clarity for you, Mr. Langford? All right, next row.
It is the intent that we review each of the increases every year. So if we're able to stay within the $7 million budget, and either I or my replacement do the analysis, then that would affect whatever we do recommend to the commission for the following year's increases. The idea of the utilities is they are supposed to stand on their own 2 feet, as Mayor suggested earlier. And that is my goal, to be able to tell everyone what it costs to run the sewer department.
All right. Ms. Walker.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Is this the first time that the commissioners have had the ability to question?
No, as she stated in her opening statement, we've all had individual meetings that probably lasted an hour and a half to 2 hours. So this is not our first time reviewing it, no.
Was the public invited to that particular no?
That's what we've done since I've been here, is that each year, city manager and finance director meets with the commissioners individually. If the commissioner decides to meet individually, and then we come back and have this public forum as we're doing now. So no, it's never been open to the public for the commissioner, the director, the city manager to meet down and discuss it.
So if I take these 81 pages home, digest it page by page and line by line, I can come up in the next commission meeting and ask questions, because it's on the agenda for the next commission meeting. Is that correct?
If that's how you decide to spend your evening, sure.
Thanks.
All right. Anyone else on that row?
So just a comment, I believe I heard the city manager talk about the 2019 budget. And of course, you can't compare those two things.
She referenced the debt, not the budget.
Well, that was right after the hurricane. So if you're talking about the debt, which is part of the budget, I think, I just think that's, I like this word disingenuous, because, it was disaster cleanup. Kiki already talked about how, much money had to go for, pickup.
Do you have a question for the budget?
I do. I would like to, well, first of all, I want to make a comment about Pat. I want to thank him for bringing up the library and the sports complex and bringing up those issues. How much was, and I believe that the building across the way there, the old city hall, that still needs to be repaired. How much was spent on this building? What was the total expenditure so far on city hall?
You can, either one of us. But this building right now, we're just talking about this building. Culpepper's bid was $13.8 million.
That's the construction
Yes,
part of the
the
building.
construction part of
The
it.
demolition, design, and furniture, we're at $18 million. Yes.
Okay, the other question I have, are there, I'm glad that the debt has gone down from 65 million or whatever it was to, was it 35 million or 39 million that the city is currently in debt? I heard two different figures and I want to clarify that.
This is at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, so that's the clarification on that. Are there any estimates, and I know this would change, the total cost for the upgrades to the sewage treatment facility and the rebuild? What would be the total estimate right now? And I realize that is subject to change, depending on, I know it's a process and depending on, the cost of supplies and, construction and so forth.
The latest number that we have used in-house is $50 million.
Thank you.
All right, thank
I
you.
did want to clarify, in terms of the debt for Ms. Moore, I did give you a comparison in 2017, and I think city manager then was Mr. Schubert. The total debt, not budget, total debt was $31,734,000. That was in 2017. Of course, we had the hurricane in 2018, and then we borrowed $30 million, $31 million, which took the debt to $66 million in additional.
All right. Anyone else on this side have any questions about the debt or about the budget? All right. Yes, ma'am.
The city was projected to receive like 17 to 22 million. I just want to know how much they have received, how much of the $10 million bond has been paid back, and who they've paid using the funds. It's supposed to be a sweep account, paying the bond back with whatever amount comes in from the state each quarter. It is only 2.5 years until the surtax retires, and so we should have collected more than 10 million to pay back the bond by now. It should be paid off. Thank you.
And what's the 17 to 22 million? Where is that supposed to come from?
I believe she's discussing the surtax fund.
Okay.
There were two bonds for the surtax. One was for $6 million. The other one got us to $10 million. Both of those bonds were paid off in full last January.
All right. Any additional questions from the commission? All right. Until next time, thank you. All right, moving on to our city attorney's report.
I have been working with staff to prepare a handful of ordinances that should be coming to you in your next few meetings.
All right, thank you. All right, public hearing, 6:58 p.m. Discussion and a possible approval to adopt the tentative community development agency budget for fiscal year 2024-2025.
This is resolution 2024-09437. And it is a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, adopting the tentative community redevelopment agency budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. Are there any comments from the public? All right, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Peebles, second by Commissioner Vandegrift. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Public hearing closed at 7 p.m. Public hearing opened at 7 p.m. Discussion and possible approval to adopt Resolution 2024-09438, tentative millage rate for 2025 tax roll. City Manager, if you will read the resolution and the trim rate.
Yes, thank you. Resolution 2024-09438, a resolution of City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting the tentative levying of an ad valorem taxes for Bay County for fiscal year 2024-2025 and providing an effective date. The taxing authority is the City of Lynn Haven. The rollback rate is 3.7594. The percentage of increase over the rollback rate is 7.7299. The millage rate to be levied at 4.0500.
All right. Is there any comments from the public? All right. Are there any questions from the commission? All right. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution? All right.
Make a motion to adopt the resolution for the tentative millage rate, 4.0500.
All right. Is there a second for this motion? All right. Motion dies for lack of second. All right. B, discussion and possible approval to adopt resolution.
Excuse me, Mayor. I'm going to need some direction from the commission of what they would like me to do because I'll have to redo the budget.
All right. So commission, what would you want her to do? Commissioner Ward, Commissioner Peoples, Commissioner Purnell.
Oh, just like, I know you, Sam, I know you want to lower the millage rate. I'd like to see the millage rate go to 4.1. I just think that we're leaving money on the table. I'd like to see the COLA rate go down and the millage rate go up. So I'd like to see more money in the budget for things we need to accomplish and flow through. But that's just me. We talked over our strategies and whatnot. That's my only hang up.
All right. Commissioner Ward, any comments? All right. So is there, all right, so we don't like the 4.05. So either we're going to go up or go down. Right now, we can't go above 4.2 because that's the number we voted on. So we can't go above 4.2. And seemingly we can't survive if we go to the rollback rate from the budgets that we've seen. Because we did receive, I think, was it 3 different budgets? So we did receive 3 different budgets with 3 different rates. So I believe when we looked at the lower, at least in my meeting, when we looked at the lower budget, there were certain projects that were being cut out that we just couldn't see the city, surviving off a rollback rate from what I saw in the budget discussion with the city manager and finance director. So, and I guess the question will be if we do the 4.1, exactly what projects or what would we be able to include in the budget at that point?
Nothing.
If memory serves, moving to 4.1, this is from memory, so I think it'll bring in another $70,000. But if you give me a moment, I can fire up my machine here and tell you. Oh, I have it at the right page and everything. $74,549.
How much would we lose if we went down to, if we kept it at 4.0?
$74,549. Half a point either way.
I'm just gonna say it, I'm never gonna be pro raising a millage rate because it's a percentage, and it should be based on, the millage rate is a percentage of the property tax of the homes. And so if more homes are coming in, then that takes care of itself. And we do have more homes coming in because our accounts are going up. That being said, I'm not anti-grant writer. I love the idea. I do think, though, that we should find a way to get a grant writer and cut $74,000 somewhere else. I know it's a lot of work, but there are areas where we can. I know there's a lot of great events that the city does. Maybe we can look at those. Because at the end of the day, a grant writer could bring us in money to pay for those events.
We do have the grant writer in the document you have in front of you.
But if I understand properly, the main purpose to go from 4.0 to 4.05 was to fund a grant writer.
That was a big chunk of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't all of it, but it was a big chunk of it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be honest, I was considering it, the 4.05, like heavily, but I just consciously can't vote to raise a millage rate. It mathematically, if you have more people coming to the city, the millage rate shouldn't go up.
My calculations are based on the property assessor's document that is prepared on June 1. So if the house was completed and they were occupying the house on June 1, they're included in my calculations. So whatever happens between June 1 this year and June 1 next year will be calculated in the following years.
I will say too, I will add that the legislature has approved several more exemptions, particularly to homesteads, that affect the math not in your favor.
Right, but every year, even if you have a homestead exemption, your taxable value goes up 3%. So if you bring in more houses plus the addition of 3%, if you do the math, it's still 4.0 makes more sense as far as the number of houses coming in, the 3% increase.
Well, I guess the question is, could we get a better statistic as to what our accounts have increased by? Is that a Stephanie question?
Oh, the utility accounts?
I think that's what he's counting as the utility accounts.
Yeah, if you have more utility accounts, that means you have more people.
I guess this year compared to last year.
Yeah, so the utility accounts are not going to reflect the amount of increases just because we have like master meters and things like that. So we have apartment complexes with 280 units, and that, to me, that's one account. Of course, that property size reflects it, but I want to think it was around 10,300 last time I checked, but I can absolutely report back tomorrow with a more accurate number.
Now, the 10,300, when you're saying apartment complexes at 280 apartments, and you're saying that's just one account. So if we take away one apartment complex, are you saying then it would be 10,299? Is that how you're counting that?
Correct. And in that 10,300 is also the irrigation meters. So I want to think there's about 9,500 residential
And just asking for approximate numbers. Can you approximate what that residential number was last year around budget time, approximately?
I would hate to give you an incorrect number right now. I would definitely say it's gone up a few hundred just because of the amount of customers moving back since the hurricane. That doesn't necessarily mean new build, though. So I can absolutely get that number tomorrow, though.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, just how much money are we talking about on a $250,000 house with homestead exemption at 0.05.
I can tell you because that's exactly what my house is, and I've already done the math. So we were looking at like an extra $16 a year.
A year.
Mhm.
Looking at 32 if we go to 4.1.
Mayor, I need some direction, please.
All right, so right now,
In another motion, then.
yes.
Well, I'm just continuing our discussion, and Commissioner Vandegrift, her motion was for the 4.05. Sam here says he wants to take it down to 4.0, right? Well, I wanted to go up to 4.1.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we're playing poker here, but I'd be happy to make the motion or let Commissioner Vandegrift go ahead and make her motion again and agree to 4.05. So,
all right,
if that's where we're getting, if we're not gonna swing up, sure as heck not gonna swing down.
So basically, you're suggesting splitting in the middle?
Pretty much, it's where it is.
Yeah, just
Just
going back to what
it's just me and you talking here anyway. So
yeah.
Right.
All right. Is there a motion for this?
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. The motion is to accept the proposed budget with millage rate of 4.0500.
Is there a second for this?
I will second that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Vandegrift, second by Commissioner Perno. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner, Peebles,
No.
Commissioner Ward,
No.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Discussion and possible approval to adopt Resolution 2024-09439, tentative general fund and enterprise fund and budget for fiscal year 2025. Are there any public comments? All right, no comments from the public. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Would you like for me to read the resolution, Mayor? A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 and providing an effective date.
All right, is there a motion to adopt this resolution? Or if you like to discuss changes you would like to see in the budget, we can do that as well. Is there any?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
All right, City Manager, if you'll call the vote.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno, excuse me, Commissioners Peebles,
No.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Public hearing closes at 7:14 p.m. Consent agenda, approval of minutes, 8/27/24, regular meeting minutes, approval for a final RV extension for an additional 6 months on property 1212 Texas Avenue for delayed reconstruction post Hurricane Michael, and approval to declare asset Bush Hog 13883 surplus and auction off. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I would like to motion to approve with the addition that we add Mr. Walker's comments that he made to the minutes. He said, I believe, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Walker, but didn't you say there were some things you said in public commentary on 827 that were not reflected in the minutes?
I don't think anybody's comments are verbatim in the minutes, though. I mean, when I review the minutes, my comments aren't verbatim. no one's comments are verbatim. So if he's referring to his verbatim comments, nobody's comments are verbatim. I think CJ does a great job of summarizing what the comments are and highlighting those, but I don't think anybody's comments are verbatim.
Is there Mr. Walker, is there something that, like a key item that you didn't see in there, or is it just that you didn't see the verbatim comments in there?
This has happened before. If you realize that when you are keeping a log, I had this discussion with Mr. Jackson, the only thing you rely on is the fact that you can go to your records and prove it. Comment that was made in what I made was the statements that I made were not fully explained. This has been done before.
Right. Can you be more specific to the specific part in the minutes that you're referring to?
Beginning, where she said, Mr. Walker said the following. He didn't.
Okay.
Didn't include the whole thing.
Okay, so it does sound like it's just that it was not, she didn't put in verbatim, but, okay, I understand. Thank you.
But like I said, this has happened before, and it's supposed to get it from the recording.
All right, so it does sound like it's that the verbatim was not listed, and based on that, how we've been doing it, I'll rescind it and just motion to approve. And then if anytime anyone has issues with, if they feel like they didn't say it in the minutes, just bring it up in public commentary specifically. That way that'll help a little bit better, help us figure out what it is that weren't in there.
So what's the motion again?
Motion to approve as is.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, City Manager, we call the vote.
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes.
Commissioner Warwick,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Moving on to new business. Discussion and possible approval of Resolution 2024-09436, setting the stormwater service assessment role and stormwater assessment fees for fiscal year 2024-25. City Manager, if you read the resolution.
Resolution number 2024-09436, a resolution of the City Commission of Lynn Haven, Florida, providing the fiscal year 2024-2025 stormwater service assessment role for stormwater-related services, facilities, and programs, directing certification of the assessment role and collection pursuant to the Uniform Assistant Collection Act, confirming notice, imposing, levying stormwater service assessments, providing direction, and providing an effective date.
All right, City Attorney. All right. Are there any questions regarding the stormwater service assessment fees? Any questions from the commission for the stormwater department?
If we keep the rate the same, what would our shortfalls be? That would be my question.
As far as what would we not be able to accomplish?
Correct.
So the stormwater non-ad valorem is what pays for the salaries of the personnel that runs the department or that works in the department, the maintenance, the ditch digging contract, the culvert replacement, repairing inlets, et cetera. So again, the budget looks like we have reduced it significantly. We have not reduced the budget for, money-wise, we have just reduced the projects that are not ready to bid out yet. So if we continue to either stay steady with the non-ad valorem as it is today, or if we increase it, all we are doing is taking in the $1.5 million, $1.7 million-ish for the maintenance that we will run the stormwater department day-to-day with, and also try to help build a reserve for the future. If you recall, I think 2 years ago, we had the box culvert at 19th and Main that we had to replace that was rotten. Luckily, we had the ARPA money to help cover that project. If we had not had the ARPA money, we would have either had to borrow from sanitation or go out and get a bond on the project to be able to build it because we did not have the money. So the non-ad valorem is helping fund the day-to-day and helping build reserves in the stormwater department so that we can eventually take care of those projects as they come. Again, we are not able to build any of the master plan projects or any of the future CIP projects with what we take in. It's only the day-to-day operations, the day-to-day maintenance. Also, the equipment that you see in the budget, that is not purchased from the non-ad valorem, that is purchased from stormwater impact fees. So if we continue to keep it the same, we will always have to go to the impact fees for equipment, always have to go other places, hopefully grants or appropriations for the projects, and we will not have the reserve in case something happens. We would have to go borrow from sanitation or an SRF project or a bond.
We promised the citizens when we passed this last year that we would take a look at it every single year, that it wouldn't be an automatic increase. So you're telling me that we still need this money?
Yes,
that we've
ma'am.
come a long way,
Yes, ma'am.
but
There will always be maintenance to accomplish. I've been here, this month will be 4 years. Prior to that, I believe they had $10,000 a year budgeted in R&M infrastructure. Now we're able to budget anywhere from $245,000 to $265,000 just to repair stormwater culverts, inlets, dig the ditches. And in the past 4 years since we've had the non-ad valorem, we've been able to dig almost every ditch in the city. We've been able to purchase the concrete canvas, repair inlets that have been failing, replace culverts, purchase new equipment, and that kind of stuff. So it has been a huge help on maintaining the stormwater. We have seen a reduction in the structural flooding. We have had some summers that haven't had as much rain, so that has helped as well. But we can see a reduction in the structural flooding that we had before.
And now I guess the question is, I know 4 years ago when we adopted this, and this is also to, I guess, part of Commissioner Vandiger's question, or as I'm seeing it as well. I know 4 years ago when we adopted the stormwater assessment, we were going off sort of a increasing scale that was presented by Stantec that will get the stormwater to a place where it could be independent and not, again, taking money from sanitation. And so have we reached that point yet? I guess is, part of the question. Now, we've stopped that a couple of times, but have we reached the point to where we don't need to borrow money from sanitation? And if we don't increase this, will we have to take money from sanitation?
From what Stantec originally presented, if we continue on this path, we will have a shortfall longer because we didn't have the higher increases that they projected from the get-go. We still have a shortfall in cash because of the amount of the increase that we have not done. We have slowly increased it. The year two, I don't think we increased it at all, if I remember correctly. And then we had a smaller increase last year, and then we have a smaller increase this year than what was originally projected from Stantec. So we still will not hit the goal that they anticipated in year 5. We will still have the shortfall. And Kiki can correct me or elaborate more on that if I missed that, but that is.
May I embroider a bit? When Stantec did their initial analysis, they told us a certain percentage over 5 years, and at the end of those 5 years, we would receive X amount. I don't remember what the grand total of X amount was, but because we pushed off 1 year and we did some adjustments along the way, over those 5 years, we will receive $1 million less than what Stantec told us we were going to receive in 5 years. So just pushing off a year and making some adjustments, I understand. There were difficult times. It was COVID. The economy is bad. We thought we were doing what was right for the residents. But in the long run, we're going to have to make up that $1 million. As of today, the Stormwater Department is in the hole. They have a negative cash position of $500,000. We have taken the position that we're not going to take money from sanitation anymore. But I report to you that they are in a deficit position of about $500,000 today. And if you do not approve this increase, that will only make that situation worse.
So I guess the other question would be, if we're negative $500,000, what are we doing to cover that negative line item? Where are we getting that money from to cover that?
We're not. We're taking from reserves, or we're cash carry forward. Remember how I discussed that at the beginning of the meeting? We're using a cash carry forward. We're taking from yesterday's money to apply to this budget. Stormwater needs these non-ad valorem assessments.
Is there additional questions? I see you, yeah. Any additional questions from the commission?
Are we going to have like a discussion period or just questions? I just wanted to talk about it a little bit.
If there's a motion and second, then that'll move us to discussion.
Okay, so I didn't really want to talk about this, like the vote on this item. I just wanted to bring it up that I'm not a huge fan of the non-ad valorem method, but I respect that you guys have done your research, voted on it, and have decided on that, and that was even before I was here. So with that, I kind of dug into the tier system as I talked about a few weeks ago, and I've done the math, and I know it's too late to adjust it to like a major adjustment tonight, obviously, but because it was on the agenda and we talked about it, I did all the math. I've created options that could be, we either adjust the 3-tier, move to a 4-tier, move to a 5-tier, that will make it more fair among the citizens, because the math just, there, as I said a month or so ago, there's, as far as like the average home versus the tier 2 cost is like a 12.5% variance. That's not fair. If there is a true 3-tier system, then the average home should be paying close to what tier 2 is when you average all the homes. And so I've done all the math. I've created a slideshow. I sent it to the city manager. So if any of you want to see the math, this would obviously be for a future budget, just to put it in our heads for the future. I think that there needs to be some tweaking to the tier method if that's what we're sticking with. Like I said, I respect that you guys have done the research. I respect that you guys have decided that, and so I'm not going to push back on it. I just ask that you consider the math, that if we do stick with a tier system, non-ad valorem, that we adjust the tiers to make it more fair among the citizens, as well as potentially bring in more revenue to the city. If you change the math up a little bit, it'll make it more fair, plus it'll bring in more money to the city. So it's a win-win. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So if you're interested in that, you can ask the city manager for the math that I did. Of course, it's not a voting item. It's just math for consideration in the future. It's not for tonight. It's not for this voting item. It's just so that we have a better idea. If anyone out there wants to see the slideshow, send me an email. I'll send it to you. I just like to, like I said last year, I just want to talk about this more, refine the approach. And, you know, that's all. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Is there a motion for this?
Just ask a quick question. If, with this increase, how much extra does this bring in if compared to if we kept the rate the same?
I believe it's $300,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
No, Sam, if we could share your math that you gave the city manager, the city manager has to share it with us. So we can't ask Sam to share it with us, right? Share.
Correct.
So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with all of us, okay?
I sure will.
Can I double check with the city attorney? That's okay to do? If I give the city manager a slideshow of just math?
So if anybody wants to discuss it, it needs to come back on the agenda. If anyone loves your four-tier plan or at least wants to
Right.
discuss it more, it does require a change to your methodology, which may
Right.
require Stantec to update their reports. And I haven't reviewed your initial assessment resolution or your ordinance to understand what changes may also be necessary there.
Yeah, I was more so asking, can they just ask for the slideshow and look at it?
They can't. If you submitted it to her, it's a public record.
Okay,
They just can't talk to you about it.
Right.
Except in a public meeting.
okay, thanks.
All right, is there a motion for this?
I think we've kicked the can enough. I'm going to make a motion that we approve this year's increase.
All right, is there a second for this?
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Perno, second by Commissioner Vandegrift. Comments from the public? Mr. Langford?
That time of year, stormwater, come back around. I'm going to ask you for the same two things I've asked for every single year. Number one, why am I paying more for a vacant piece of property than I am my house with a pool deck, driveway, etc.? Makes zero sense. You guys were just talking about an adjustment to the millage rate that equated to $16 a year. Okay? I'm paying $57.72 more on a piece of property with nothing on it than I am my house. I'm going to leave that one alone. The second thing I'm asking for is, when does this thing stop? All right? Which leads me to my next point. The lady came up here tonight, and I believe she said that there were roughly 10,300 accounts, I think is what she said. So quick math, if we did 10,300 accounts and everybody paid $8, which is what we were paying before on our water bill, that would be $82,400. Now, that may be 10,300 accounts consisting of both house and irrigation. I'm not sure. Bottom line, here's where I want to draw the comparison. What was happening before this special assessment occurred? What was the budget for stormwater? I want you to take that number, okay, annually, and I want you to compare it to the number right now, which is, I believe, 1.7 and some change, okay? I'm not going to sit here and do the public math on the percentage increase that is to operate a department, but it is astronomical, okay? Now, here's where I want to close. When we were paying $8 on the water bill, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul. We were taking money from this department to fund the stormwater, okay? You all said, well, we need a special assessment. We need $1.7 million a year in order to fund this department. We're going to do X, Y, and Z in order for us to fix the flooding in Lynn Haven. 1.7 mil is what we agreed on essentially every year, and it would be reevaluated every year, okay? Now I'm hearing that out of the 1.7 mil, X 100% increase from what we were operating before is still not enough. We're still robbing Peter to pay Paul. So my question to you and your question to everyone else is what is enough? How much money is enough to prevent us from robbing Peter to pay Paul to fund a department? You guys really got to understand this. Where were we, where we are now, and where are we headed? That's all I want to figure out. I mean, it's a substantial increase. The money that's going to that department. So it's got me scratching my head. I don't understand it. I don't understand how it happens. And I don't understand how it's still not enough. And every year we want more and more money. Thank you.
Mayor, can I address some of that?
Yes.
The first year, Stormwater brought in $1.2 million. That's the first year assessment. The second year, it was not increased, so it was $1.2 million. The third year is when we changed a little bit, and it was 1.5, somewhere along in there, $1.5 million. So as Kiki was saying, that 1.2, the second year that we did not change, we're making up for it. We really are not. We're just in the hole, basically, because that second year where we didn't follow the plan of Stantac, now we're behind. Now that we're back on track, we still have to play catch up. And that's just where we are. So this year, it's going to bring in $1.7 million. But yeah, I will just say, I know Commissioner Perno was here when I came in. The city has and had some very bad stormwater. Even our former mayor knew it. She was out there with all the rest of us. It was bad. We were night and day when it rained. There were neighborhoods that were literally all underwater. That is not happening. So I think that we can see the stormwater is working. I just don't want to see this city go back to where houses are really being flooded. And we can't improve our infrastructure because we don't have the money. I remember the first year city manager, we had to borrow $1 million from sanitation because there was only about $800,000, maybe $400,000 in stormwater. So that just gives you an idea of where we come from with stormwater to be able to help the residents that had very, very bad flooding.
The one thing that we need to remember is when you're talking about how things were years ago, before the hurricane, all those trees were helping us with our stormwater flooding. Even with all the trouble that we were having, the trees were helping us. Now the trees are gone, the same amount of water is coming down, they're not being absorbed by the vegetation. So until that growth comes back, which will take decades, we can't count on that. And I share the city manager's opinion here. We don't want to slide backwards. We've made great strides. We have a rain event. The phones don't ring like they did before several years ago. We would hold our breath when the rains came down. We didn't know how many people were going to be impacted. That has been drastically reduced. So I understand that it has financial impact on all the residents. But as far as the city is, as my professional opinion is, we need to continue forward progress with this and don't let it slide back through disrepair like it was in the past.
Mr. Walker?
I've been at this for 20 years. You weren't here, 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 you weren't here. Half the people on the staff were not here. We paid into stormwater for 20 years. I was asked at one time to do a survey and find out where that money was going that was put on our water bill. I did find out. It was put on the general fund. And in the general fund, it disappeared. Nobody could find it. For 20 years, we paid into stormwater. When this first came up, Corey got involved with it. Commissioner Warwick got involved in it. You guys went and got a company to give you outside information. One time, we came in a meeting with that company. Up there was a big sign, Lynn Haven, you cannot support stormwater. Period. And you open Pandora's box by going with assessment. Now every village, town, going with assessments. You opened it. You just had a variance committee meeting where it was proven that the people could not adapt to your stormwater rules. The variance committee gave them a variance on it. You know why? The water table is 3 inches below the ground. At that meeting, I said the water table at my house is 3 inches above the grass. You're not going to solve this. You were told. The only people that have ever solved this is Galveston, Louisiana, Holland. You can't solve it. Right now, Galveston, they had to take the whole city and evacuate it and build it up on the island. Just recently, they had a rainfall, and guess what? Galveston went underwater. You know Louisiana went underwater. You can't solve it. You passed a resolution to let Syntax, I think that's the name of the company, take over and tell you what to do. Mr. Warwick has made a suggestion once, can we get another company? You're throwing it against the wind. It's not working. That's why you're going to have to continue to raise this every year. Unless you get people that know what they're doing, you can solve the problem. People in this town, citizens, are going to have to bail you out every time.
Is there an additional public comment? All right. City manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Bruno,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandergriff,
Yes.
Commissioner Peoples,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Discussion and possible approval of development order extension request on the development order to expand the M&M Market located at 1201 Ohio Avenue.
Just briefly, I don't have a presentation for this because basically, if you recall, M&M Market, who are on the corner of 12th and Ohio, were given a development order a year ago so that they could expand their business, expand the store, and also put in stormwater and more parking and landscaping. They have asked, their development order actually expires tomorrow because it's only good for 1 year. And so they have asked if they can have a 6-month extension. And they said the reason is because their engineer has had health issues and they've had some deaths in the family and it just hasn't been top priority.
We discuss. I'd just like to say that's my convenience store right there at the corner of 12th and 77, Vic and Sheila. And, you know, they're really good folks. They are wonderful people. And you know, Circle K is a nice, big, shiny place. But Vic and Sheila, you know, their folks always greet you. They know you by name. You know, it's a really, really good, warm feeling when you go in there. And I know they've had the best intentions of getting this going, but I'd also like to tell you that their property is also where the American Sand is. You know, they've staged their gravel and whatnot, and Vic and Sheila let them come on their property and do the shoulder extension for 389. So, I mean, that would have pushed them back a little bit too if it was at another time. So they've had to overcome some things. So just to let you know, and as far as ex parte communication, they had brought it up to me, and I said we'd talk about it tonight, and I just want to let y'all know how I feel. And we've extended development orders before, I know that, and they're the type of folks, they're going to get it done. So,
Although they're only asking for 6 months, could we actually consider doing it for another year?
Yes, sir, you can.
So I would just probably, instead of the 6 months, just actually consider doing it for another year.
I would definitely make that motion. So let's give them an extension for a year, and I'd like to make that motion.
All right, motion by Commissioner Parno. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Peebles. Any discussion from the public? All right, City Manager, you call the vote.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Peebles,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Vandegrift,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Meeting adjourned.